I'm going to, okay, I am going to disappear and give you a PowerPoint. So, but this is what I look like. Let's see. Share screen.
Is this on Zoom? This is on Zoom.
Huh. Let's try that. Hang on, I seem to be having some difficulty here. We're trying this again. Share screen. Okay. There we go. How's that? Everybody can see? Yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so today we're going to talk about community seed gardens, considerations for planting, harvesting, saving, and sharing your seeds. I'm very happy to be here. This is, I think, my third or fourth time. I think it's third time presenting to Paradise Permaculture Institute, and I think you guys are doing amazing work down there. And I'm going to be speaking today, building on the work that we've touched on in our previous conversations. So hopefully not repeating myself, and hopefully helping you in your next step, which is community seed saving. So just a little bit about me to follow on what Mona shared. I have the Good Seed Company. It's a passion project of mine that while I was waiting for this session to start, I did a little calculation and realized it will have been a decade this July. And its entire purpose of being is to really support community seed saving. And it's encapsulated in this quote on our business card, that the community practice of selecting, saving, and sharing seed is at the heart of human resiliency, and helping reestablish that practice is why the Good Seed Company exists. So that's a sentence that those are that concept that our seed and free access to our seed, to quality seed, is at the heart of our species' ability to be resilient. It drives pretty much everything I do. So that's why I'm here today. So let's see. The other thing I do is I'm executive director of AERO, which is a statewide grassroots organization, been around since 1974. That's 48 years now. And it's an organization that is focused on sustainable energy, agriculture and community food systems as a whole concept. And it educates by engaging community, building lasting partnerships, and creating spaces where leaders and inspired community models flourish. It's been incredibly successful at that grassroots community-based level for all this time. And I invite you to check us out if you are unfamiliar with us. Learn about our programs. I don't know if Coulter Schroeder's there, but I know he's a member of PPI, and he's also a board member of AERO, and he could tell you more somewhere along the way. We're looking for board members if you'd like to join that incredible team. Anyways, it's an extraordinary organization doing amazing work, and I invite you to discover ways that we can be a resource for Livingston and PPI and the folks in your community, and the ways you can contribute as a participant or member. And I really want to highlight in particular one program specifically from AERO, which is our Abundant Montana program. This is a directory we've had for, I don't know, 20 years now. And we have recently launched it in a new platform to be a megaphone for local food for Montana. We've expanded it to now be a marketing and media hub that informs, promotes, and connects, making it easy for anyone to find and choose Montana farms and food. And the reason we are doing this and spending so much time and energy making this a success is because we have a vision of all Montanans nourished and food secure, of thriving and respected food providers, stewarding our land, our water, our animals, and our seeds, tangible, inclusive relationships across the entire Montana food web, fostering collaboration and partnerships, and informed consumers advocating for local, nutrient-dense, and culturally appropriate food. So that's what we're doing there. It's an extraordinary resource for the state of Montana. I invite you to check it out, participate, engage, just lean in. So that's that. And now on to what we're going to talk about today. Let's see. So today we are going to look at three main areas: seed vitality, specifically storage and the power of sharing, planting your seed garden with fruits and roots in mind, and harvesting, the best tool for engaging community. And then with some extra time, I believe we'll have at the end, we can just chat and talk about anything that comes up from you from what I've shared so far. Okay. Somehow I'm not doing this right. So before we start, I shared this last time. I just want to bring it up again. These are resources that I think are a really good distillation of what's out there. There are a tremendous number of resources, but these are the ones I keep going back to. This is, yeah, so you have these from last time. You'll have them as in the slide deck from today's talk. These are 3 seed resources. These are growing resource, soil resources, and for enhancing the quality and nutrient density of your food. And then what I'm adding this time is there are a couple online resources I think I would recommend. Seed Savers Exchange here, seedsavers.org, has recently updated their website, and they've got a fabulous series of resources on seed saving that I highly recommend. So definitely use them. Just lots of good stuff there. And then Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance is focused specifically in the central Northwest Rocky Mountain region for building seed community and seed stewards. They do some great work. They have an online seed school, great work there. That's the work of Bill McDorman and Belle Starr. And then within Montana, community seed saving resources are now available through Land to Hand Montana, which used to be Farm Hens Nourish the Flathead. They've changed their name, and they have absorbed the program Free the Seeds, which is fabulous because they have the resources and capacity to expand Free the Seeds to be a developing program, and hopefully support providing resources to other communities in the state that want to start being more collaborative in terms of building community seed banks and putting on seed fairs and things like that. So they could be a resource, for example, for PPI as it's leaning more into its community seed saving projects. Anyway, they can help. There you go. Okay, so seed vitality, number 1, seed storage. The power of sharing. So basically the key of this is, the first question is, how do I store them? I get this question a lot, and it's very simple. It's just cool, dry, dark. You want to stay away from sunlight, and you want to stay away from heat and moisture. So really anywhere covered that's away from drafts and away from a heat source is really all you need. You want to label everything, at least with the year and the variety. Do not, I repeat, do not rely on your memory. Other useful information can include the Latin name of the variety, any flavor notes that should say flavor, growing location, or observations from the year. And most seeds are viable for at least 3 to 5 years. You know, I would put it 6 to 9, but 3 to 5 is certainly safe. There are some exceptions, mostly members of the garlic family. I think that's because of the oil that's in the seed. And for some reason, parsnips don't seem to be viable as long as carrot seed, for example. But beyond that, 3 to 5 is an easy reliance. And yes, you can freeze or vacuum seal your seeds to prolong their life. So here's just some examples. These are just my seeds from last year, or I guess 2 years ago now. And this is what I do. I just got the year, where I grew it, and the variety. And sometimes I wrote some notes if it's a new variety to me, or whatever, you know. Glass is another, you know, some people, you know, how is it okay to put it in plastic or glass? Glass is great. It's airtight and inert. It's also breakable and bulky. If you're going to use a cooling environment like a refrigerator, just know that they are humidifiers. They absorb water. So use a desiccant if you're storing here. Same for the freezer. So this down here is a bag of some tomato seeds that I keep my bulk seed. I go through my seed very quickly, and I keep my bulk seed in a refrigerator or a freezer. And these are an example of tomato seeds that I've got in a plastic baggie. They're two separate envelopes of seeds because they're from 2 years. And you'll notice I have a lot of rice in the bottom of that plastic bag. That's to absorb any moisture that might be caught in the air that's captured in that plastic bag, because you can do your best to get the air out, you know, before you close it, but you're never going to get it all. So this is to absorb any moisture that's captured in there, because if it's not absorbed by the rice, it's going to get absorbed by the seed. This is a picture of my freezer and some bulk seed there, and you'll notice, and these I typically store in glass in my freezer, and you'll notice some envelopes, these envelopes that are in the glass jar, those are full of rice. Okay, what else? So, but my main takeaway for you is this: seeds are meant to be shared. So the best way to maintain vitality of your seed is to share it, replant it, and save it again. This supports the genetic vibrancy and biodiversity of the seeds, and which is the best hedge against disruptive events that might cause massive failures of a crop. The more variety you have in the genetic makeup of your seed cultivar, the more likelihood you'll have some plants that can manage crazy things that might happen, you know, like hardy, you know, heavy hail or early frosts or grasshoppers or some kind of a, you know, pest, whatever. That's all. We're always trying to maximize diversity. So the takeaway is, of the three things, the three key points for heirloom seed saving is select, save, share. And to me, the most important is the sharing. And then of course I would add and repeat, because keep your seeds in circulation. We have a tendency as humans to try to store, save, hoard for a rainy day. It's actually better to save and share with seeds. Okay, planting your seed garden with fruits and roots in mind. What the heck does that mean? So I gave you guys a whole bunch of seeds that I know you will, as time allows and resources permit, you will lean into growing in one or more seed gardens. And I'm just giving you some tips and tools as you do that. So, okay. So why do I talk about fruits and roots? Because we want to think about, when are the seeds ripe for harvesting? And you can kind of categorize seeds into two places. One is the seeds are found in fruits that we eat, or the seeds are found in plants where we actually eat the greens or the root of the seed rather than the fruit of the seed. And those two divisors are key characteristics to consider when you're planting a seed garden. And for our purposes, we're going to treat flowers and herbs as if they were greens and roots, and that will become clear as we go along. All right, so just remember that a plant's purpose is to reproduce. And in the plant's point of view, its life cycle is complete when it produces ripe, viable seed. And the reason that's important to remember is because that's different. Most of us grow plants for food to eat, and we're not necessarily thinking about the seed when we're doing that. So if you think about what I'm calling our fruit seed, these again are plants where the seeds are found in fruits that we typically eat. So what are examples? Examples are peppers and tomatoes, eggplant, peas, beans, corn, melon, squash, cucumber. You get it, right? So the trick is when the fruit is ripe, that is when we know that the seeds are mature. But the funny thing is that most of the fruit, a large portion of the fruit that we eat when the fruit is actually immature. So the rule of thumb of knowing when the fruit is ripe is the skin changes color and or it hardens. So let's think of tomatoes, right? Tomatoes start out green. We don't eat them for the most part when they're green. For the most part, we eat them when that skin turns red or yellow or whatever, you know. And now we all know that that fruit is ripe and ready to eat. The same thing with melon. Most of us wait until that melon is nice and ripe and we eat, and that's when we eat the fruit. That is also when the seed is ripe in the melon. However, we also eat cucumbers, and we tend to eat those when they're still green. We eat summer squash, which is basically a winter squash that we eat when it's immature. We eat bell peppers, which are peppers that we eat when they're green. We eat peas, green peas and green beans when those plants are immature. And we eat corn, when our sweet corn, when it's immature. And the reason we do that is particularly with corn, peas, and beans, we're eating the actual seed, and the plant is storing sugars in the seed that will eventually turn to starch, which is a stable form of sugar that the seed is going to use as a food source when it germinates, next season. But we like to eat it when it's in that sugar stage. And if you think about sweet corn, if you squeeze the sweet corn, you get kind of like a milky substance. So it's called the milk stage. That's great for us and our taste buds, but the seed is immature. And if we'd harvest those plants at that point, we wouldn't have viable seed. So know that difference, pay attention to it. So the second rule of thumb is leave the fruit on the plant as long as possible. If weather or time requires you to harvest early, you want to pick the fruit and leave it in a warm, dry, airy place to finish maturing, because what that really means is to let the seed finish maturing. Third rule of thumb is that for a number of these plants, you can pull the whole bean, pea plant and hang it upside down in a warm, dry, airy place to mature. So here's some examples. This is a paprika pepper that is now ripe. I pulled some of these when they were green and they're now red. These are jalapenos. We typically eat jalapeno peppers when they're green, but if you bring them indoors or if you live in the South, they turn red. That's the color you want if you want to save the jalapeno seed. These are peppers that are somewhere in the middle. On the right, I have some tomatoes that I had to bring indoors. You can see they're not quite ripe. They will eventually ripen. Bottom left, these are hot peppers that are ripening. And then here on the right, I have some pictures of green beans in the process from when we would eat it on the left, in the middle where it's ripening, and on the right side where it's the seed, the pod, the skin has changed color. It's gone from green to brown. And of course, it's hardened. It's nice and dry. That's when you know it's ripe. So, here's more pictures. So let's see. These are zucchini. I wished I had a ruler when I took this picture. This is a laundry basket. So, you know the size of zucchini that hasn't been harvested when it's young. And I brought them indoors and waited till they turned this color and the shell hardened. And now they were ripe for seed. And so then this is a picture of me just having scraped out the seeds, rinse them, and then let them dry. And that's how we have the zucchini seeds that we like and recognize. And here's a picture of a cucumber, a pickling cucumber. So this is a quart jar, and this is the size of the cucumber, all right? Significantly larger than we think of as the cucumbers we eat in the summertime. and you'll notice that the color is yellow and the skin is hard. So that's how, this is what we're doing if we're saving these types of fruit seeds for seed. So the takeaway, plan to leave the fruit on the plant as long as weather permits to maximize seed maturity. That's the takeaway. So I gave you guys some seed, and here's the tomato plant. I'm just checking my time. So just some hints about tomatoes that you're gonna, if you're gonna harvest them for seed. These are pretty easy. You just want to cage your tomato starts when you transplant them into the garden. I also gave you a bush plant. So these won't be quite so large, and indeterminate plants can be kind of unwieldy, and you definitely want to cage those. But actually, the bush salad tomato that I gave you is a pretty tight little plant. Not so important to cage it, but the other ones would be. Hints for moving plants along, fruit plants along to harvesting is reducing the water once fruit has set. Some people think it's important to prune the suckers. Others are convinced it's not valuable. I find it helpful, but not critical. You can harvest the tomatoes as they ripen and just extract the seeds from those ripe tomatoes, and you're good to go. Watch for frost. Plan to cover with a sheet or remay. The fruit seed will survive. Now, this is true. This I know to be true for the seeds that I sell. All of the heirloom tomato plants that I sell are cultivars that have been developed over the last 200 years, somewhere in the Russian continent, whether it's Siberia or Russia, anywhere. So, and for that reason, they can handle frost quite well. That may not be true for other cultivars that have developed in other regions. You know, this is a tropical plant originally that comes from the New World, South America in particular. So it's just, I sell cultivars that were made hardy over time in Siberia. Let's see. You can also, as I think everybody knows, these tomatoes certainly ripen very well indoors, just out on a plate on your counter or in a paper bag. Peas, and I think I gave you 1 or 2 kinds of peas. You want to reduce the water to once the fruit has set. These are candidates for a dedicated seed bed because they take a long time to ripen. And I think I would just, what I'm inviting you guys to do when you choose to do this is dedicate a bed that's just for plants that you're going to let go to seed, and that'll become clear as we go along. So peas are a particularly useful one because, one, you have to trellis them, and 2, they take a long time to ripen. You want to watch for frost and harvest them before the frost. The fruit and seed will not survive. Bush beans, I gave you 2 kinds. Same thing, want to reduce the water once fruit has set. These also are candidates for a dedicated seed bed. Watch for frost, harvest before frost. Fruit and seed typically will not survive. I do want to point out that I gave you this variety called an Indian woman yellow bean because, again, while beans originated in South America, they've traveled all over the world, as we know. And this cultivar was developed, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago now in Sweden, and made its way to Montana with Swedish settlers. And as a result, it has learned to survive Swedish weather. And of these 2 kinds, the Indian woman yellow plant is more frost hardy than the contender. So it's another reason I like it. It's a delicious dry bean, and it makes great soups and stews. But I also like it because it's quite hardy. And we had a frost here in September last year, and my Indian woman yellow bean survived. My contenders did not. So, all right. So the second variety type that we want to consider are our greens and roots seeds. So these are plants where we eat the greens or the root of the plant, with the root being like the radish or the carrot or the beet or the parsnip. And because that's what we do, we don't actually typically ever see them flower and go to seed, right? We're just focused on the leaves and the root. So if you want to get seed from these plants, you have to let them flower and go to seed. So the rule of thumb is that's what you need to do. Let the seed mature on the plant as long as possible. Now, the second thing is that they take a whole lot longer to grow than you are typically thinking of for this plant, because we typically are growing them just for the greens. But for a lettuce plant, you can get leaves somewhere between 30 and 45 days, but it's literally going to take 2.5 months to get seed from that plant. The second thing is that it's going to grow and change shape significantly from the type of plant you're used to seeing into the type of plant that you're harvesting seed from. So you want to plan your garden accordingly. All of these are candidates for a seed garden bed. Second rule of thumb is know your plant's dispersal mechanism. I'll go into that in a little bit. So this is a lettuce plant. This is a lettuce plant bolting, and this is what it looks like fully bolted. This is upwards of 4 feet. So it's very different in size and shape. So I gave you lettuces, and then I would include in this brassicas and radishes and greens. And going to seed, as I think any garden grower knows, is heat and resource dependent. So a little crowding, a little water reduction, even some covering may assist. We had a summer here, I don't even remember when, where it just was a cool summer, and I was unsuccessful at getting my lettuces to go to seed in time. They just hung out there in this 70-degree weather. And I did not think to cover them. I think that would have helped. So just pay attention to what supports the conversion to seed. Be thinking of what the plant's life cycle is and what the plant needs to think is happening in order to promote seed production. Once seed is set and starts to ripen, you want to bag it. Once you start to see about 1/3 of your seed pods turn color, then by that time you want to be bagging it in order to capture seed. A lot of this seed is dispersal seed, which means either the pod breaks if it's a brassica, or lettuces have a little bit of a feather on them, if you will, that helps them disperse in the wind. So they get released by the seed head and then they fly away. So you want some way to catch it. And for all of these, you want to harvest it before frost. You can actually, it's easy to pull the whole plant and put it in a leaf bag. If you're going to grow brassicas for seed, just pay attention to the species. The same species will cross-pollinate, and so you want to isolate them by species. And radishes will grow to the size of large beets in the time it takes them to go to seed. So just keep that spacing in mind. And I found this picture of, I usually use paper bags, but here's a nice picture from seedsavers.org that has some nice big, they look like those inexpensive large kitchen plastic bags that you could use. That did not occur to me until I saw the picture. Carrots, we talked about these last year, but just the key point here is that these are also candidates for a dedicated seed bed. They're a biennial that cross-pollinate, so we want to follow the recommendations we talked about last year in terms of overwintering and pollinator isolation. And then herbs, I think I gave you guys some herbs, and here the invitation is put these in a dedicated location. You want to treat them as perennials. Even if they're not hardy perennials here, which I think actually all of these are, they'll produce enough seed that they'll tend to self-seed, and you just want to keep them somewhere where they're not going to invade the rest of your garden and get to be a source of frustration. And again, what you want to do is you want to, once the seed is set and start to ripen, you want to bag to capture seed. And note that chive seed ripens midsummer. Let's see, and flowers, I would treat them again like you do herbs and lettuces. And I would invite you to plant them in your dedicated seed bed and use them if you interplant them between vegetable varieties, particularly if you've got a couple different varieties of tomatoes. They're a really nice break to possibly confuse any pollinators that might be going nuts in your garden. And they're also attracting pollinators. So the greens and root seed takeaway is plan on significant plant size increase as it matures into flower and seed. Okay, and I just included this slide because I really wanted to show you the ACE leaf bag, because this is my favorite harvest tool. I can pull any of my flowers, any of my herbs, any of my lettuce or brassicas plants if I'm worried about harvest, worried about frost, excuse me. I can just pull that whole plant and put it upside down in this bag, put it someplace in like a cool carport out of the sun. And the pods will ripen and the seed will harvest, and I've got a bag to catch it all. So I just love these bags. They're so inexpensive and reusable and all that good stuff. And then in terms of quantity, I think this is a radish plant. And this is, one plant that I pulled and put on a table. This is probably over 3 feet worth of branches. So FYI, I'm looking at a 4-foot tall radish plant. And then I'm looking at this particular branch here. So there's probably 10 pods here, and each pod has 10 seeds on it. So that's 100 seeds right there. And I don't know, let's just pretend I've got 20 of these branches. And so I've got 2,000 seeds from one plant. So just in terms of, and every single one of those seeds is going to make me a radish, and ultimately a source of another 2,000 seeds. So you don't need a whole lot in terms of, you don't need a large quantity of your plants in order to get a number of seeds that you can save and share. So just keep that in mind. If you have 3 or 4 different people saving seeds from 4 to 6 radish plants in 4 to 6 different beds, that's rock solid. You've got plenty of seed for your community. This is another way to make that point. This jar here on the left, this is mustard seed. So this is 4 to 6 plants, 1 harvest, and that's 3/4 of a jar, 3/4 of a quart, excuse me, of seed. Here at the top is a perennial herb. This is summer savory. This is 1 plant, 1 harvest. That's a pint of seeds. This happens every year. This is a flower plant. So this is 15 seed heads from 1 plant, right? 15 flower heads. And that's, I don't know, that's probably 1/3 to 1/2 cup. Okay, so my last point is harvesting. In my mind, harvesting is the best tool for engaging community. So I think I'm just going to say this. I'll see if I can say this. I pulled these slides, this page from another talk, which I think I've actually given here. But my point is that in every community of growers, probably, I think it's generous to say 10% of those growers are going to be your seed savers. People grow for different reasons, and I think it takes a really dedicated grower to want to be saving seed. And maybe you save seed from your favorite plants or the easy plants. It's a little more involved to save seed from the ones that require more space and time. However, I guarantee you that everybody loves harvesting seed. And this is an amazing way to gain ambassadors and engagement. Is maybe you're not going to have many people saving seeds, but you are going to have people who learn about seed saving or who engage with it. And they are just as important as the people who do the work in the garden bed. These are just pictures from different events. These are, we built cleaning supplies, and just lots of people came to that. This is an event at the bottom here where we did it outside a library, and we just got a ton of people who showed up. And, I love the intergenerational stuff that happens there. It's just delightful. This is a sink cleaning event we did inside in a hallway. It's just, you can do it anywhere, anytime, and it brings people together. And it is my opinion, from doing this for 10 years, I think this is a true, I believe this is a true statement, that I've witnessed this over and over and over again, is we are definitely connected to our food and nourishment, life source and force. And that harvesting seeds together in community with our hands awakens that cellular memory in all of us. And I actually grow sweet corn for the sole purpose of having the dry corn cob available for folks to harvest together in community, because beans and corn in particular, the process of community breaking those pods open of beans and shucking the corn off its cob, it just, you can literally see people awaken to something that they didn't have a conscious connection to before. And it connects them in some way to their food that I've not seen through any other intellectual effort to engage them. And that is powerful beyond measure. So if for no other reason, then it supports us re-engaging to that life force knowledge that's inherent in our genetics and our DNA, then community seed saving is valuable for that purpose in and of itself. That's me. I'm going to get off screen sharing. Thank you for your time, and we can chat after I manage to get off my sharing.
Thank
Did I
you,
get-
Robin. Do you have a
Yeah.
minute or two for some questions
I
now?
sure do. If I could
Okay.
find my Zoom thing. There we go.
All right. So anybody here have a question for Robin? Go right ahead. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, just.
Can you hear me, Robin?
I can. Hi.
Hi there. My name's Jessie. And my question, I think that the most common question I get when talking about saving seeds is how we can isolate different seeds that need it for the pollination factor and keeping the purity of that seed. So if you wouldn't mind just going into that a little bit, that'd be awesome.
Sure. There's lots of ways. The easiest way is in separate gardens, if that's possible. Another way is to build an isolation cage. That picture I had with the carrots, I had built a little isolation cage and wrapped and put it around and grew my carrots in that isolation cage. You can also do something kind of quick and dirty with just a large piece of mosquito netting, and some stakes that are taller than the size of the plant, and just drape the mosquito netting over those stakes so that it surrounds the plant, and then burying the edges of the mosquito netting in the soil. You're basically trying to just keep other pollinators out of your plant, away from that plant. And then you need to provide a pollinator to that isolated, caged off plant. And the easiest thing to do that is with you can buy pupae of the housefly, common housefly. I think it's joshsfrogs.com has the best resource I've found. And I swear to God, you just put these little pupae in, you buy them, you put them inside your little cage, and the flies just run around and pollinate all of the seed flowers in your isolated seeds, plants. Another way is to separate by timing so that things pollinate at different times. That's a little hard for us in our shorter growing season. So I don't actually recommend that. It's not easy to do that. And then I think I've shared previously with things like your squashes and melons, those are easy to hand pollinate, and you open the flower, you hand pollinate it, and then you close the flower. Those are pretty easy. You can do it that way. How's that? There are resources in all those books I gave you and online for more details.
Okay, any more questions? Oh my gosh, I think we know everything.
Okay, that's great. That makes my job easier.
Oh, okay. If you, excuse me, if you want to let us know how to contact you for your seed, for people wanting to purchase seed further. And then also if you want to mention something about what we're going to be doing in the fall with the seed garden.
Yes, so you're going to plant as whatever seeds you want. And I'm going to come back in the fall, and we're going to do a class together and learn and do harvesting together. So we'll all learn about how to actually harvest the seeds together and have that community experience of seed harvesting. And Good Seed Company access is goodseedco.net. I'm going to make this slide deck available to Mona, and that information is also on the slide deck. And if you have any of my seeds, the contact information is also on the seed packets.
Okay, great. And I saw Adele said that it's a wonderful talk.
Oh, that's very
In
kind.
the
Thank you.
chat. So people in the chat are appreciating it too.
Oh,
So.
very good.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you so much, Robin. We're
You're
going
so
to
welcome.
exchange seeds and try some of your wonderful seeds.
Okay, have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
too.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Robin, and thank you, whoever else is online. So
Okay.
take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So what we want to do right now is just take a couple minutes, get the lights on, and then we have some seed already distributed, and some of the seeds she mentioned on there, I'm going to be sure that those are out on the table too. She has quite a few different packages. We'll spread them out so you can take your time and gather seeds. There's a little notice on